Let's zoom in on just one single day in our recent history, March 19th, 2026. Now, on the surface, it looked like a day of just pure chaos and conflict. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll see it was also the day the future kind of showed up way ahead of schedule. It's like two different worlds colliding on the very same date.
And it all kicks off with this just jaw-dropping admission from the President of the United States. We were clueless. I mean, can you imagine? A comment like that sends shockwaves through the world, signaling a crisis that is absolutely spiraling out of control. So what on earth was going on?
Well, it all started with one single military action in the Middle East, one strike that was about to set off a devastating chain reaction across the entire planet.
Okay, so here's how fast it all went down. First, boom, an Israeli strike hits Iran's South Pars gas field. And this isn't just any gas field, it's the largest in the entire world. Iran's response? It was immediate and it was widespread. They started targeting critical energy hubs all across the Gulf. This was not some small regional skirmish. No, this was a direct assault on the world's energy supply. And what happens when you attack the world's gas station? You get a full-blown global energy panic. The economic shockwave from this thing was felt almost instantly. The markets reacted with, well, brutal speed. Oil prices shot up to $118 a barrel. Now, that one number tells a much, much bigger story of global anxiety. It affects everything, right? You feel that immediately at the gas pump, and it jacks up the cost of shipping, pretty much everything everywhere. And you can just see the dominoes falling right here. The attacks forced Asian countries, who are so heavily reliant on this energy, to start rationing fuel, even shortening their work weeks. The damage in Qatar was so bad, they warned they might have to halt exports for 5 years. I mean, just imagine that. This supply crisis forced this huge geopolitical shift, sending refiners scrambling to lock in whatever Russian crude they could get their hands on. So when you heard Qatar Energy mention this term, force majeure, this is what they were talking about. It's basically the legal version of saying an act of God, or, in this case, an act of war, has made it impossible for us to hold up our end of the deal. And for countries depending on that energy, that is an absolutely terrifying prospect. So beyond all the economic chaos, this conflict put an immense strain on long-standing alliances. And as we're about to see, it came at a staggering human and political cost. You could literally see the friction this created between the US and Israel. While the White House was publicly saying, hey, we knew nothing about this, the intel community was talking about widening tactical differences. For allies this close to disagree so publicly, well, that's rare, and it's incredibly significant. And then there was the price tag. The Pentagon had to request an extra $200 billion in emergency funding, not just to keep operations going, but to replace the massive amount of munitions that had already been fired off. Meanwhile, the human cost was just mounting. In Lebanon, the death toll from ongoing Israeli air raids climbed past 1,000. And even more tragically, UNICEF reported that 30 children were being killed or wounded every single day. And while the whole world was focused on Iran, other conflicts were just simmering, ready to boil over. A Sudanese drone strike killed 17 people at a funeral in Chad, threatening to drag yet another nation into its civil war. And over in occupied Ukraine, Russia was tightening its grip, seizing property and rolling out these youth militarization programs. It just felt like the entire world was on edge. But this is where the story of March 19th takes this fascinating, almost surreal turn. Because while one world was literally burning, another one was being built. Right alongside all the chaos, a completely different kind of future was being forged. So let's just, for a second, turn away from the headlines of war and economic panic. Let's look at the monumental technological leaps that were being made on that very same day. The pace was it's breathtaking. On March 19th, OpenAI announces a super app to basically put AI right into our desktops. Jeff Bezos is out there trying to raise $100 billion for a new AI manufacturing fund. And his other company, Blue Origin, jumps into the race to build data centers in space with a plan for 52,000 satellites. This isn't just small steps. These are gigantic, world-changing leaps into the future. And this, right here, is the central paradox of the day. How can these two realities, one that feels like a step backward into conflict, and another of just relentless technological progress,
How can they exist at the very same time?
And, of course, underneath it all, the normal rhythm of life just kept going. Thailand re-elected a prime minister. A historical debate flared up over a holiday in California. A massive global campaign kicked off for the World Cup. It just goes to show you the sheer, dizzying complexity of a single 24-hour period on this planet.
So what we're left with is this incredible snapshot of a single day, March 19th, 2026. On the one hand, you have a conflict that feels ripped right out of the 20th century, all about oil and territory. And on the other, you have this mad dash to build a 21st century future, one driven by AI and space. Which leaves us all with a really critical question to think about. Which of these two clocks is ticking louder for humanity?